Итак, дорогие друзья и уважаемые коллеги, сегодня у нас с вами семинар, доклад, который будет на английском языке. Спикер сегодня Лиза Заславская. Вопросы к спикеру можно задавать по ходу доклада. И я с большим удовольствием передаю слово нашему сегодняшнему докладчику. Пожалуйста.
Okay, so let's start. I'm really glad to take part in this series of seminars. But first of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Liza Zaslavskaya. I'm a Master of Philosophy and I graduated from St. Petersburg State University Department of Philosophy. And as a researcher, I'm primarily interested in analytical philosophy of mind and in functions of consciousness from the naturalistic point of view in particular. So I studied under supervision of Professor Sergei Vitalyevich Nikonenko, and I want to say thank you for this opportunity to take part in these interesting events. And before I start, I want to mention some points. First of all, I want to say that I'm a philosopher, but I am not an engineer and I'm not a developer. So I want to make my lecture or this seminar more like a dialogue and not as a monologue, because I think it will be really weird for me to talk about artificial intelligence because I'm not engineer at all. So maybe I think it will be useful as for me as philosopher, and maybe it's for you as engineers or maybe developers. So I hope it will be useful for both of us. And I am really open for any feedback, and as Natalia mentioned, you can ask me questions during my presentation, and if it's suitable for you, you can write me on my email or maybe on Telegram if it will be okay for you. So the topic for today is analytical philosophy of mind and artificial intelligence. How to read? Oh, so that's it. What is our agenda for today? Maybe I can, at the beginning, I can say the main conclusion of my presentation, because if you, I don't know, haven't got enough time, the main idea is that the consciousness is very complicated and very complex subject. And nowadays, we don't have consensus in understanding of consciousness and of all issues connected with this topic. And some of the researchers even think that we will not answer these questions because of our natural inability to do this, because of our nature. But others are still trying, and today we will discuss how we do this and so on. In my point of view, I think that it will be easier for researchers to answer these questions connected with consciousness with the interdisciplinary approach, because these topics are investigated by philosophers, by psychologists, by neuroscientists, by engineers and cognitive scientists, and so on. So it's really complex subject. And I hope that today we will try to understand each other. Of course, I prepared for this lecture, and I watched videos of previous seminars here, and I decided that it will be interesting and useful for you to see the problem of consciousness from a philosophical point of view, because when I watched videos, it seemed to me that I don't know, engineers think that everyone understands what is consciousness and how it is to be conscious, but it isn't so. So what we will talk about. First of all, I will tell you about modern analytical philosophy of mind, what it is and what are the main properties of this field of knowledge. After that, we will discuss the term consciousness. I will mention some theories of consciousness, and we will discuss main issues of consciousness in modern philosophy of mind, and maybe we will try to make some parallels between with these issues and problems of artificial intelligence. So I see some messages in chat, but okay. So. I will explain why I decided to speak English today, because unfortunately in this field of knowledge, I mean analytical philosophy of mind, a lot of works are translated in Russian, and discussions are held in English, and I think it's better to speak the universal language speaking about these topics. And the second advantage of my English today is that I will speak slowly, and I hope it will be easier for you to understand me because of my slow speech. I hope so. During my speech, I will ask some questions because, as I mentioned, it is more useful for me to make it as a dialogue. And the second point is it's really strange to talk to screen without any reaction. So like I speak with myself. My presentation will be kind of overview, just to tell you what is going on in this field of knowledge. And so let's start. Okay, I think that all of you had to face the philosophy in your life, maybe during studying at university or somewhere else. And for common people who are not professionals in this field of knowledge, philosophy usually seems something like literature or art. So beautiful words, beautiful texts, beautiful terms, and no practical use. But there are different branches of philosophy, and some of them are really like literature, but others are more strict and more scientific or scientifically alike. And analytical philosophy is more scientific. What do I mean when I call it more scientific? First of all, that it is more naturalistic. What do I mean when I call it naturalistic? There are two main properties of analytical philosophy of mind. First of all, it's methodologically naturalistic. What does it mean? That analytical philosophy use scientific data and from different fields of knowledge and even scientific methods. And another understanding of naturalism in analytical philosophy of mind is ontological naturalism. What does it mean? That nothing supervisual exists. So we cannot talk about some supernatural entities and so on. And we base on scientific natural worldview. But science in analytical philosophy of mind understands not so strict as in real science, and some decisions or concepts that analytical philosopher can suggest are more bold sometimes and maybe more brave. And the main task of analytical philosophy nowadays is to conceptualize data from different sciences to make more bold suggestions in understanding of these topics. Okay. So let's continue. Maybe I will ask you a question. It will be more comfortable for me. Have you got your own understanding of consciousness for you? What is for you consciousness? I'm ready to hear some answers. No?
Yes, Hadi, you can say.
Okay, so my understanding of conscious is like the ability to be to absorb the environment and to understand what is in the environment and inside of yourself. So you have to be aware of, like, for example, not only the physical stuff, but as well like the emotional stuff, the theoretical concepts, everything, and make a whole idea or a whole understanding of the connection and the relationship between all of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
And one more idea in chat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yes, it is a very complex complex term, and maybe we can call it umbrella term that cover a wide variety of mental phenomena. And if we are talking about connection with artificial intelligence, first of all, we should define the term. Yes, what, for example, when we think about, is this artificial intelligence conscious, we should understand what is consciousness and how it is to be conscious. So without this answer, it's just a strange dialogue for me. So, but this term is really complicated and there is no consensus in understanding of consciousness. But let's make some points on this subject. First of all, we can understand consciousness as someone or some being conscious. So what being we can call conscious? First understanding is the being that have some senses and can respond to the world according to these senses. So from this point of view, for example, fish is a conscious creature. The second one is wakefulness. What does it mean? I think it's more connected with medicine and so on. When some being is awake and can it has an ability to normally walk. Someone call this being conscious because it's awake. So another one, and maybe it's like that one of us mentioned, is self-consciousness. So the being is consciousness when it can not only be aware what is going on, but also be aware of that they are aware of something. So, for example, when you want maybe to drink some coffee, you understand that you want to drink some coffee. And from this point of view, maybe fish is not conscious being. Another understanding is a more philosophical one, and it is called what it is like. For example, a human can tell you what it is like to be human, and people understand what it is like to be human. And for example, maybe, but we cannot understand what it is like to be, for example, a bat, or what it is like to be a cat, or what it is like to be conscious machine, or and so on. Another understanding of conscious being is subject of conscious states. So the being can be called or named conscious if this being has some conscious states, and we will discuss these states later. And the last one that I decided to put here is transitive consciousness. What does it mean? So the consciousness is usually consciousness of something, and so the creature that can be conscious of various thing can be named conscious. From this point of view, maybe some artificial intelligent object can be conscious because it's always directed to something, as I understand, but you can say me if I'm not correct. Okay, so another understanding of this term is state, conscious state. What does it mean? The first one is connected with self-awareness, and as I mentioned, for example, the example of desire for a cup of coffee, and at the same time being aware of desiring a cup of coffee. So if the state is like this, someone thinks that it is a conscious state. Another one is more, maybe it's more complicated one, and it's connected with qualia. Have you ever heard this term, qualia? Maybe you can put it on chat or write it on chat. Qualia. No? Yes, Anton, no, it's not from Tanoni, but he mentioned it too. Yes, Russell told, yes. Okay, what does it mean? Qualia. All of you felt it. It's, for example, it's your personal feeling of color, or your personal feeling of taste, or your personal hearing of music and so on. So for example, when you look at something red, you have your own inner feeling of redness, and you cannot understand if another person feels the redness like you. We cannot compare these two feelings. So this is qualia. And in some conceptions, consciousness state is this qualitative state, for example, feeling of redness or your personal feeling of just cup of coffee and so on. Phenomenal states are connected with qualitative understanding of states, but they are more complex and are connected not only with the feelings or senses, but also with more complicated subject of mental life or inner phenomena. What it is like states are connected with what we mentioned above, about what it is like. For example, what it is like to be a human. So all of us understand what it is like to be a human. We have this state being a human. But for example, we cannot feel how it is to be a cat. And the being that has this feeling of what it is like can be conscious and has this conscious state. Another one is access consciousness. What does it mean? That we have an access for, we have access to our different states, different feelings, different emotions, different things, and different judgments, and so on. And when we have this access, we can say that it is a conscious state. And the last one I decided to mention is narrative consciousness. What does it mean? In some theories, the self or the person or consciousness understands as a narrative, as a story that we tell ourselves and others about ourselves. And if we have this narrative, we can name them narrative consciousness state. So I'm talking about all of this mostly because I want you to show that it is a really complicated subject, and there are a lot of approaches even in defining the term. And the last understanding of this is consciousness as an entity. Of course, it's not really modern and it is not widespread. I mean that few researchers now think that consciousness is an entity, but there are still ones who still think that it's an entity. And why not? Maybe someone will be upset that there is no common understanding of this subject, but as for me and maybe for some other researchers, it is the only way to find our common decision for this subject, because consciousness is a complex feature of the world, and it has different aspects, and maybe by combining all of these understandings, all of these definitions, we can find the one or combine the one that will be more connected with the reality. So it's just a path or a way in investigating this subject. I don't know this. I wanted to mention this state because from some researchers think that before we should answer the question, for example, is some artificial intelligence conscious, or try to create this conscious artificial intelligence, we should understand how the human consciousness works, what it is, and because when we do something with artificial intelligence and investigating it from point of view of consciousness, it's weird. But maybe you have another opinion, and I will be glad to hear maybe more technical or engineer point of view on this subject. Or are you agree with this statement? I'm not sure if it's true or if it is wrong, but maybe the decision will be to do it in parallel, so to investigate human consciousness and at the same time to try to do conscious robots or something else.
Is there a theory of human consciousness?
Can you repeat, please?
Is there a theory of human consciousness?
Of course, we will discuss it a little bit later.
Okay, so first of all, I need to know just a bit about this theory, and then I can answer the question.
Okay, we will return later to this question.
Anton wants to say something. Anton, please.
Thanks. Can I, how to say it, share my opinion on this topic?
Yes.
As far as I read something about consciousness of artificial intelligence, well, I'm not super familiar with this topic, but at least I read Tanoni. So my opinion is that the idea to repeat, I want to stress, to repeat the human's consciousness won't allow us to build some sort of the consciousness of the artificial intelligence. This is my personal opinion. I'm not sure that it is some kind of scientific, it's just my feeling. I believe that the human cannot reproduce itself without giving a birth. I mean that if we have some kind of system, if we assume us as a humanity and the planet to be a closed system, we cannot represent the same system once again. So basically, if you're talking about the consciousness, I believe that the problem is stated like following. We have consciousness, by we, I mean human, and we want to make another consciousness that is as powerful as others. I believe that this is impossible in the closed system. And in this point of view, I think that the way should not be to represent the existing something. We can try to represent some parts of it, but I'm not sure that it will bring us the true consciousness. So I guess for achieving these purposes, we have to how to say it, to rename or represent something another, to call something another to be the consciousness, and not to try to represent the human's consciousness. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think that's. I don't want to estimate this opinion. From my point of view, we can it's better to do all our best to understand human consciousness, and I think it can be helpful to in creating artificial intelligence consciousness, and I think it's better to have a dialogue between researchers of human consciousness and between researchers of artificial consciousness. Maybe it will be useful for both of these fields of knowledge, maybe partly, I'm not sure. So of course there is no right answer on these questions, just discussion. But we will discuss today theories of consciousness, of human consciousness. And as you can see, I just put here some of these theories and maybe some of categories of these theories. And you can see that there are a lot of them. And some of them are more modern, some of them are more popular, but there is no consensus in understanding of human consciousness. I don't know, maybe I will not, I want first, before I prepared for this lecture, I wanted to tell you about all of these theories, maybe for 2 words, but I'm not sure that we have enough time for this, but maybe I will mention some of them. The most classical theories are dualist theories. What does it mean, dualism? I think you know this, but I will just mention some points of it. As you know, before modern years or before contemporary years, philosophers and researchers thought that there are 2 substances of universe, and one is the material substance, and another is mental substance, and they have different nature, and maybe they can have some connections, some interactions, but they are different inherently. And most classical one is substance dualism. I mean, I'm talking about this, and it is connected more with philosopher René Descartes. I think you know him. But nowadays, of course, substance dualism is not widespread, but another sorts of dualism are still popular. And one of them is property dualism. What does it mean? That of course, there is a difference between mental world and the material world. They are different. Maybe they have common nature, but we cannot reduce mental phenomena to physical one, and so on. So they are different, but they have common nature. Another interesting theory is natural monist property dualism. What does it mean? That in the basic of reality is not mental, and it is not material. It is founded of some natural stuff. It is not material. It is not mental. more basic and more simple and natural. Another interesting theory is panpsychism. What does it mean? That everything has a potence to has mental life. So has its ability to be mental, and the world is consisted from mental stuff, or proto-mental one. Okay. So some messages in chat, but maybe I will read it after. But these theories are, of course, they are popular, but they are not the most popular ones in scientific society. More popular ones are more physicalist ones, and what does it mean? That they consider that mental phenomena are connected or based on physiology, on the brain, and so on, and we cannot disconnect them. And there are different kinds of relations between mental and material phenomena in these physical theories. For example, functionalist theories that it's kind of interlevel relations between brain and consciousness. Now there are more like emergent theories that mental is a property of brain, like I don't know, like I have no examples. Sorry. And we have some specific theories. I don't want to dig into detail on the theories, but you can find a lot of information about these theories. Maybe I will mention one or two of them in detail, just to show you that how it is in analytical philosophy of mind and in the field of researching consciousness. Okay.
Sorry, Liza, can I ask a question about previous slide?
Yes.
Do you think on slide number 6, please, could you?
How can I do this? Okay.
Yes, I have one question. Do you think some of these approaches is suitable for artificial intelligence, or there are other ideas of this slide?
I think my idea was that if you study artificial intelligence, you can use some of these theories or just what you like, and try to extrapolate it on studying of artificial intelligence, just to try, and maybe you will have some interesting results or so on. But you have a huge range of theories to try and to investigate and to compare, and so on. That was my idea.
Do you think we should just try it in the artificial field, but maybe do you know maybe some theoretical approaches how to validate these theories before we will try to use it? Maybe some kind of validation.
What do you mean under validation? So is it right? Is it correct or it isn't correct? Or?
Yes, I mean, is it suitable for artificial intelligence? If I correctly understood your idea, we need just choose some approach and apply it in artificial field. Is it correct?
I don't know. Maybe you can tell me what quality should have theory to be suitable to artificial intelligence.
I think it's an open question for this type of research.
Yes, maybe it's a good field for research.
Okay, sorry for interrupting you.
Okay, the next question is, and the next problem which I want to discuss is our understanding of consciousness by common people. And I want to ask you, how do you feel your inner world, maybe? How you feel yourself being conscious? And I asked you above, and maybe the most traditional understanding of consciousness is the so-called Cartesian theater. What does it mean? So we have a picture that illustrates this understanding. Intuitively, we see ourselves as a center of consciousness, maybe as a little person sitting in your head and watching your mental states, your feelings, and maybe your judgments and thoughts, and so on. So it's very intuitive for us to feel like this, that there is a center of our brain in our head, and from this center we make decisions, and it is maybe it can be called a person and so on. But it is very difficult to research consciousness because it is difficult to abstract from this point of view, from this Cartesian theater position. And a lot of theories of consciousness nowadays are counterintuitive, and that's why they are really difficult to understand and to operate with them. And for example, I decided to tell you about, I think, the most famous and the most popular theory of consciousness now. It's multiplied drafts model by Daniel Dennett. Have you ever heard this name or maybe this theory? No. Pasha. Thank you. It is very influential theory, and a lot of scientists, philosophers, psychologists, and so on agree that the theory is interesting, and it seems to be correct in some points, but of course there are a lot of critical views and arguments against this theory. And but every theory has its opponents and proponents, so it's okay. I think the most counterintuitive point of this theory is that there is no person at all, and the person is only a narrative. So it's only the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves and our people about ourselves. And there is no freedom of will, but only a feeling of freedom of will. And of course, we feel ourselves free and we feel ourselves persons, but it's just an illusion. And the function of consciousness from this point of view is only social, and it is evolutionally based for interaction and maybe, I don't know, for such social stuff. And all the decisions are we make are made in our brain unconsciously, and we only have any information in our consciousness that is interpreted by a special field in our brain that was opened by Michael Gazzaniga. So there are no persons, no selves. Is just an illusion, and it's evolutionarily based. So maybe it's for someone it may seem sad information, and some philosophers and think that if this idea that there are no selves and no persons will influence bad on society, because we, from this point of view, they think about moral responsibility and so on. So if there is no freedom of will, no self, there is no responsibility, maybe. So it's, but this theory is really counterintuitive, and it's difficult to suppose that the self is just an illusion, just a narrative center of gravity, don't call person soul. Okay. Let's continue, and I want now to discuss main issues of consciousness, and maybe we will try to have some discussion about the connection between main issues of consciousness and issues of artificial intelligence. Maybe it will be useful, and I will be glad to hear your opinions and maybe your thoughts about this. The first one is explanatory gap. So we have a picture and it illustrates this gap. So how consciousness might depend upon a non-conscious substrate, especially physical substrate. So how and when and why something conscious appears on unconscious stuff like brain, or maybe like some robot or so on. How? And do you think that this issue is suitable for engineers too? Hmm? No?
We have one hand. Pasha, please.
Yes, well, I have a hypothesis that from the point of engineering view, probably we have a such complex system that there is no conscious at all until it was unconscious, but we cannot understand how it works. Well, we can explain it with word of magic or some kind of this, but actually it would be 100% non-conscious and rational. But from our point of view, it looks like and functional mass consciousness.
Okay, thank you.
And one more idea in chat. There is no answer for this question.
Yes, you're right. There is no answer for this question. And yes, I heard about that. There is no conscience at all, and it's it's one of the opinions on this point of view on this issue, and that it's incorrect term at all. And because there is no such subject as consciousness. It's only it's only the more scientific or scientific-like understanding of soul. So this old term, philosophical term, or maybe theological term, soul. So that's it. Sure, there is no. I think that in connection with artificial intelligence, the same issue arises. How can conscious exist on some stuff like this? The next issue is first person and third person data, or the access problem. All of us, I hope, but I don't know, I'm not sure, are conscious persons. And all of us are some kind of professionals according to their own person and their own conscious states. But there is no decision how I can feel what is going on in your consciousness. And of course, there is a first-person report, and I can tell you that how I feel the redness of red or the taste of coffee, but it's not. It's just subjective opinion, and it's really not scientific. Of course, we can have this first-person access with the help of some neuroscientific instruments and so on, but we cannot really compare the first-person report. For example, when we influence some inner structures of the brain, and the person is aware and can report, for example, when you touch this, I feel that. But we cannot really see or by ourselves how it is to be the person, how it is to be another person, and to feel that what it is, it feels now. And can we trust this when we investigate consciousness? I'm not sure. And trying to extrapolate this issue on problem of artificial intelligence, I think that maybe it can be the same. For example, how can we think how it is or what it is like to be artificial intelligence? What is going on into this algorithm or something like this? We have no answer on this question too, but maybe I'm not correct and you will say something against my point of view. What do you think about this issue in the connection of artificial intelligence? Okay. our opinions on this issue. And we discussed this too. It's about qualitative character. It is connected with the previous issue, but it's not the same. So it's about qualia, as we mentioned. Some philosophers think that there is no qualia at all, and it's just an idea of qualia and an empty entity. But all of us feel qualia every day, maybe every minute when we are aware. So this is this issue. And the same thing we can ask about artificial intelligence. Have it got any qualia or qualitative states? Or can we suppose or suggest that they have something like this? Okay. Another one is unity, or this issue is connected with the problem of personal identity or persistence of personality from time to time. I mean, all of us think that when we were kids, now we are the same persons as we were then. And for example, our friends or our relatives are the same persons as we were, for example, 20 years ago or 10 years ago. But we don't know how it works, why they think that we are persistence in time and the same as we were, for example, in our childhood. It's one side of a problem of unity. And another side is the so-called bridge problem, that we have the flow of consciousness that is continuous, and when we don't sleep or don't have some different states of consciousness. And there is no answer why we have this, no consensus in this issue. And I think that we can extrapolate this this issue on artificial intelligence too, because we don't know if can we talk about the unity of the process underlying artificial intelligence, and so on. Second one, the next one is mental causation and intrinsic motivation. What does it mean? The problem was mental causation is how can our mental properties influence or be causally relevant to our bodily behavior. If the consciousness is only mental phenomena or only an illusion, can it have some influence on our behavior or on the material world? And we have this common idea that, of course, our mental state influences our behavior and so on. But if we base on some counterintuitive theories like the theory of Daniel Dennett, and consciousness plays something like epiphenomenal role in our lives, how can we explain this influence and intrinsic motivation? What does it mean? That when I want something, I can do something. in real material world. But if I have no freedom of will and no person, how can this happen? So no answer. And maybe this issue can be exploited on the problems of artificial intelligence, because as I understand, there is we cannot talk about intrinsic motivation of artificial intelligence, but at the same time, we, from some points of view, cannot talk about intrinsic motivation of human. So what is the difference between human consciousness and consciousness of artificial intelligence? So maybe there is no difference between them. And the last...
Sorry, Liza, we have one hand. Anton, you can say.
I want to add something to your previous thought, that can we create the artificial thing about, can we create the artificial will? Let's say, let's call it in this way. Am I right that when we're talking about, I don't know how to say this word in English. Is there a word reflex in English?
Yes.
Reflection.
I mean the decision to do something. I mean to. I cannot explain it. Let me just give me a second. I mean just that if we, as a human, not all our actions are motivated by our mind. When I'm talking about reflex, I'm right, this is what exists. For example, if we, I don't know, if one human punches another human, then the second one will try to block it, to avoid this punch. And this is not the idea of will, this idea of reflex. And this is this kind, as far as I understand, this is like the evolutional behavior that appears out of our will, out of our decisions. First of all, am I right?
Yes.
And secondly, I think that this kind of reflections, it is possible to program. It is possible to give this reflex to the artificial intelligence. But if we're talking about will, it is required to separate this reflex from the will.
But from some points of view, like famous Daniel Dennett, there is no freedom of will at all. So everything in us is not, of course, not a reflex, but it's not a will. It's just an unconscious process in the brain, and we have only the result of this this decision in our conscious that is interpreted in narrative. So there is no freedom of will, and this idea is based on some researchers. Maybe you heard about Libet experiments and more modern ones, which insist on the idea that there is a gap between a decision, behavioral decision in our brain, and between the information in our consciousness. So we have only result in our consciousness, only information about our decision, but no decision making in our consciousness. So it's just one point of view. And in this, if we will think like this, there is no difference between reflex or conscious decision, as we name it. And so we can create maybe conscious artificial intelligence that have no freedom of will as people haven't got it. So it's the same. Maybe just a mental experiment, nothing else. Okay. So freedom of will. I just mentioned this problem shortly and mentioned this experiments of Libet and mentioned this connection with artificial intelligence. So that's it, we discussed it already. So in the conclusion, I want to say, and as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, that the topic is really complex and the issue is complex, and there is no consensus in understanding of consciousness of human, its properties and how it works, and its umbrella term. And if we want to investigate artificial intelligence, we should first of all define the term, and it's complicated task. And maybe after that, it's better to compare the theory of consciousness, which we will use in artificial intelligence, with the theories of human consciousness, because maybe it will be helpful, or at the same time, maybe what we will call consciousness of conscious artificial intelligence is a separated subject from human consciousness. And maybe we should give it another name, maybe not conscious artificial intelligence, but something else. Just not to do some mistakes. And the last point, or last conclusion, is that issues of human consciousness we can try to extrapolate them on problems of artificial intelligence from this meta-philosophical point of view, because we don't understand what is the consciousness of human. So, and we don't understand what is the consciousness of artificial intelligence too. So that's it. That's all. Maybe you have some questions after my presentation.
I just typed some ideas in chat, and I have one idea which I want to share with you and with our listeners. I think all topics we discussed today are similar with the main idea of book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Maybe someone knows this book. And the main idea of this book was about system 1 and system 2, system 1 unconscious and system 2 conscious, and how these systems are implemented in our brain. I think the way when we research how it implemented, it's a way how we can find answers for all questions we discussed today. It's just an idea.
Yeah, I read this book, and it's a kind of cognitive approach, cognitive theory of consciousness, and of course this book is really good. But I want to emphasize that it's the only one approach, but there are different approaches, and there is no consensus in understanding.
Yes, and I think it's the main problem for artificial intelligence, how to choose one way to try, one way to implement or to try to implement consciousness in artificial way. And I think it's a problem for us, like for engineers in this field.
Okay.
Maybe someone else want to add something or to share your opinions. It seems like no opinions, or maybe, oh yes, okay, Pasha, please.
Well, I have no opinion, but I would like to say thank you for this discussion and lecture as well, because usually it's very hard to find somebody to talk with about. And I definitely agree with Alexei that all this is not easy for me to talk about it in English, and that was additional joy today.
Thank you. Pasha.
Liza, thank you for your speech, for your presentation. I think it was a great idea to talk about this topic today, and I think we chose the right way to discuss it and set a lot of open questions to think about it later. Thank you so much for your time and for opportunity to think about it.
Thank you very much. I was glad to be with you today.
Thank you so much, dear friends. Thank you for participating. Have a good time. Goodbye.